Welcome back to this episode of Faith Infused Leadership. I'm your co-host Meredith Banka here with the founder of Three Vines Consulting, Debbie Heiser. How are you today, Debbie?
Good morning. I am doing fantastic. Thank you. And I'm anxious to talk about this topic today because if you don't mind, I'm going to go right into it. We're going to talk about kind of this reality check. And some people might be questioning what that is, but we'll kind of get into it. So I guess on the other side of it, Meredith, how are you and what's your reality like?
Yeah, my reality is really good. It's been, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. Like 2020 has been, it will go down as one of, I'm choosing to call it interesting, one of the most interesting times of my life. And for me, it's been great. I mean, there's been a lot of things that I've worked through, but it's been a great year so far. We wanted to talk about though, like there's only about 90 days left, right? And we talked at the beginning of the year, we kind of did a mid-year check-in. Now we've only got about 90 days left in 2020, which blows my mind. And so what's the reality of that? You know, is it too late to salvage the year, or can we still go back to those vision boards and those goals and make them happen?
Yeah, so a couple of things with that, right, that come up to me. One is I think about, and I've seen a really funny post on Facebook numerous times where it says 2020, none of this asterisk showed up on my vision board. So I don't know about you, but I've actually thought about, and I'm going to recommend that, and I'm going to do it myself, doing a last 90 day of the year vision board. Now, part of that also brings up for me the law of polarity, meaning that the law of polarity says that if you have rich, you have to have poor, right? So if you have this interesting year, if you have a year that is just going to heck in a handbag for you, there's also the opposite side of that where you have people that this has been really good for. And I think about that and think about how it's kind of turned our world upside down. And never have we had kind of a worldwide thing hit everybody. And we've talked about that before, but I have seen some businesses boom from this. You know, RV sales, even here in Sandpoint, our tourism has been up tremendously. Now, there would be some people that would knock that and say they shouldn't be traveling because of whatever. I'm not into like, let's debate what people are believing about certain things. It's more about like, there are businesses being very successful. There's businesses I've talked to that said they've had their best 6 months that they've ever had in their entire life. Part of that is also, I think people are being mindful about shopping locally. They're being mindful about supporting small businesses, where in the past, it was just so easy to go on to Amazon.com. Now, don't get me wrong, I order stuff from Amazon also, but I'm much more mindful now about what I'm ordering online versus what I'm going to small businesses. Now, I've also seen this really cool pivot with small businesses that may have been thinking about doing like online shopping or preparing things for you to come pick up, or restaurants that are promoting more takeout, you know, and that type of thing. Well, and I'm going to back up and explain what thing is. Your ability to adapt to change and resiliency is also coming out in people. So that law of polarity, those people that can't handle change, those people that thrive in change. Unfortunately, we are seeing a polarization because whenever you have something of this magnitude happen, it's really hard to ride the gray. And so when I think about the last 90 days, you know, I don't want to discredit people that have been financially in a lot of trouble because of this or have lost loved ones. You know, there are definite negative ramifications to this. And that those negative ramifications, like particularly losses of loved ones, those are not mind shifts. Those are not, you know, belief systems. That is a very real thing happening. So I don't want to make light of that. On the opposite side of that, as a business owner, as someone that's maybe working for an organization that's struggling, I have a friend that her husband works for a major theater company that, you know, they're going through some struggles. They haven't figured out yet how to do the social physically distancing where other theaters have. And so it's this ability to be nimble. So I want to put out there a challenge to people to come up with, what is the last 90 days going to look like? Is it going to be a crap storm, or is it going to be a success? And some of that is in the way we look at things. And the vibration that we have, like attracts like. Birds of a feather flock together.
Sure.
That is nothing more than a universal law of the law of attraction. And so, you know, some of those practical things to being able to do that is surrounding yourself with people that believe and have a bigger vibration, have a bigger thought process about how their business is going to go. When you start to see yourself having limiting beliefs, then it's time to start kind of looking for some other people in your board of mentors, you know, and really trying to diversify. And there's so many ways to do that, even virtually with people. I don't know about you, but I found I've gotten to know more people in this time where I haven't been able to travel as much, or where I haven't gone to conferences or done those things, than I have in the past, just because it's been more mindful, it's been more purposeful. There's been people saying, let's connect you with this person, so on and so forth. So looking at those 90 days, looking at it as opportunity versus I'm riding the wave of this chaotic 2020, right? Words are important.
Well, and what I hear you saying in that is that even in an environment where we feel like we have such a lack of control,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where I think that's what I'm seeing so much is we're not able to control our life the way that we thought we were going to be able to control our life, whether that's our business slowing down or shutting down, our schools staying opened or closed, you know, crucial services that we need being available or not, you know, all of these things. And so it feels very out of control. And so how can someone use these last 90 days to regain a sense of control about their direction for the rest of 2020? I love the idea that, you know, you are the top five, you are the sum of the top five people you spend the most time with, right? I also fully believe that the last quarter of a year sets the tone for the next year. It's not like there's this clean, you know, December 31st, and then you get, you know, a new ticket for the next year. If you want to know what the first quarter of 2021 is going to look like, look at the last quarter of 2020.
Absolutely.
So I'm not in that place where I'm excited about what's been going on, and my reality check is showing me that I need to do something different. How do I go about setting myself up for that success even for 2021?
Yeah, and you know what, too, Meredith, when I think about the success of 2021, it goes along with a story I talked about in a previous podcast about the law of non-resistance in water, and that flow, that easy flow. Because when you're looking at the last 90 days, you could actually have a new year each quarter, each month for that matter, but you know, like each quarter. And really, it's also about making sure you're taking the time to spend with yourself. And I don't mean, oh, let's go have a massage or a pedicure and some of those types of things. I mean, spend some good quality time with your CEO. Or if you work for a large organization and you're a leader in an organization, spend a good quality time with yourself to look at life strategically, and not just the business itself, but looking at kind of the spiritual growth. What do you want your health to look like? What do you want your mental health to look like? What about intellectually? What about relationship wise? Like, what do you want this last 90 days to look like? Now, it's not about overwhelming. And interestingly enough, I was reading this new book that a client gave me called the bullet journaling. Here, I've got it right here.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
called Bullet Journal Method. Yeah. And the book is really good. And Warren Buffett was talking to someone, and they said, list out like all of your dreams, all of your goals for this year, and now go through and circle the top 5 things that you want to accomplish this year. And then the guy said, well, yeah, here's where then I'll spend most of my time, and then I'll need to spend some time and plan to spend some time in some of these other areas. And Warren Buffett said, nope, that's your list of don't touch at all. And, you know, like, you will die if you touch that list. Get rid of it. It's not important. Those 5 things that you circled and said were the most important, that's where your focus needs to be. And getting rid of all the extraneous stuff that I think I just mispronounced that word, but I'm pretty notorious for that. But getting rid of all of that other stuff that gets in the way of us really focusing and narrowing in. And it goes back to even the group program that I'm getting ready to talk about. is, going towards what's that bigger purpose in your life. And if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. I'm getting ready to implement that. And part of that is this weekend spending some time with my CEO, myself, to kind of really strategically plan this last 90 days of the year. So
Well, and it's so interesting because I think of, just in my circles, my network, friendships, personal, professional, I'm hearing a lot of that right now. There has been so much shift that has happened that one thing that has very much been put to the side is time alone. And for all of us, I mean, our families, our kids, even, in some cases, like multiple generations are now, around us way more frequently than they were before, and people are lacking that time. So your suggestion to make that a priority, to really plan out what you want out of those last 90 days. And gosh, I don't know, what's on your vision board for 2020. Maybe you can go through and re-envision it for those last 90 days too.
yeah, and Meredith, I've been talking to some folks, as well as a collaborator that I have in Spokane, about doing like a spend time with your CEO weekend, where we go for 2 days and basically we spend that time with ourselves, but chunk it. Because the other point to this is that one of the things that I think this year has really pointed out to people is that we can't do it by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're strategically planning for a business and you're a solopreneur or you're an entrepreneur, it's important to have almost like a board of directors where you're bouncing ideas off of people and helping to understand, especially for those of us that are extroverted and have been in introverted places lately. Mm-hmm. And we've been talking about getting away and saying, okay, we're going to meet for breakfast or coffee and say, here's what I want to accomplish in the next 4 hours. And then meet back up for lunchtime and say, here's what I kind of came up with, ask for input if you want it, so on and so forth. And then in the afternoon, have a segment where then you say, here's what I want to accomplish. I mean, you're in charge of whatever it is that you want to do in that time frame, but someone's there to hold you accountable. I was reading an article in Harvard Business Review that talked about how the world is going through a regression and how it's much harder for transitions to be happening right now. And this regression is happening, like emotional intelligence, social intelligence, all of these things, because of what's been taking place in our world, not just COVID, but all of the other things that are happening. Mm-hmm. And, so for me, that accountability, a year ago, I could sit down and say, okay, I'm going to play a little game with myself and reward myself with something, after I finish this task or whatever, being the sales-minded achievement person I am. But the thought of having other people live, like in a small group, say, where are you at with this? And give me ideas. Mm-hmm. So I would highly recommend, whether it's grabbing a group of your friends or the 5 people that you say, that are in business, grab them and go do a day away and do something where you're away from your normal spot and plan for this last 90 days to be just spectacular, because you have the capability to make that happen.
Absolutely. The time's going to pass anyway, so you get to choose what's going to happen with it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for encouraging us all to have this reality check and to remember that is somewhat in our control, right? We get to sort that out. So if somebody wanted to learn more about this workshop you've got coming up or about the coaching that you do, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, really quickly, Meredith, too, I want to talk about, like, as you prep for this, if you're someone that's on social media or on the news a whole lot, if you decide you're going to go next Saturday, have a meeting with yourself, spend a week offline, don't be listening to the news, because we are inundated with all these negative reels that constantly come out and this fear. And so really try to minimize that before you go do this so that you're not caught in that bucket. But if you want to learn more about how to work with me, feel free to go out to my website at 3vconsulting.com or follow me on Facebook, 3 Vines Consulting and Leadership Development, and also on LinkedIn. And hopefully this helps everyone out there. And I'd love to have people comment and say what they've decided to do in their last 90 days.
Fantastic. Well, for this episode of Faith Infused Leadership, I'm your co-host, Meredith Banka, here with our host and founder, Debbie Heiser, and we will catch you all the next time. Take care.
See you, everybody.